In the dead of night, a chilling silence gripped the eerie corridors of room 13. A group of boys who had recently moved into the hostel had heard the spine-chilling rumors about the haunted wing but laughed them off as mere superstitions. They joked about ghosts and dared each other to step into the so-called cursed part of the building. But their laughter would soon turn into terror. Rahul, the most skeptical and daring among them, insisted on exploring the forbidden section of the hostel. He led his friends Arjun and Karan through the dimly lit hallway. The air felt heavy, thick with a coldness that made their skin prickle. Their footsteps echoed unnaturally as if the darkness itself was listening. "Come on, guys. It's just an old room," Rahul scoffed, trying to mask his own unease. His voice wavered, though he tried his best to sound brave. But as they ventured deeper, a sudden chill crept over them. The air turned icy, their breath visible in the dim light. The flickering lights above cast eerie shadows that danced along the cracked, faded walls. Karan's hands trembled as he whispered, "Rahul, I don't think this is a good idea. Let's go back." Ignoring his plea, Rahul pushed forward, his determination mixed with fear. They finally reached room 13, the most dreaded room of the hostel. Its door stood slightly ajar as if inviting them in. The door creaked open by itself, revealing darkness so thick it seemed to swallow the weak beams of their flashlight. Arjun's breathing grew rapid, his eyes darting around as if expecting something to jump out at any moment. The air felt wrong, heavy, and filled with something far worse than silence. Suddenly, a rustling sound came from behind them. They whipped around only to find the corridor empty. But the uneasy feeling persisted, growing stronger with each passing second. Then, as they took a step forward, a blood-curdling scream echoed from within the room. They froze, hearts pounding. And then, they saw her. A ghastly figure draped in a crimson saree stood against the cracked wall. Her skin pale and decayed, her eyes glowing with a sinister red hue. Her face twisted into a hideous grin that spoke of agony and hatred. She stared at them, her mouth stretched open as if trying to speak words from the world of the dead. Rahul stumbled backward, his bravado shattered. His legs trembled and his voice caught in his throat. But it was too late. The apparition lunged forward, her icy fingers reaching out with a terrifying speed. "Run!" Karan screamed, his voice breaking with pure terror. His eyes were wild, desperate to escape the horror unfolding before him. The boys turned and bolted down the corridor, their footsteps pounding against the concrete floor. Their breath came in sharp, painful gasps as they raced away from the nightmare. But the haunted wail followed them, growing louder and more desperate. It echoed in their ears, a twisted melody of pain and rage. By the time they burst into the safety of their room, their faces were pale, their bodies trembling. They slammed the door shut, their backs pressed against it as if the thin wood could protect them from the terror they had just witnessed. But deep down, they knew the nightmare was far from over. Room 13's curse had found them. The haunting had just begun, and this was only the beginning of their endless terror. Days passed, but the horror of that night refused to fade. Rahul, Arjun, and Karan were haunted by nightmares, unable to shake the image of the ghastly woman in the crimson saree. They could feel her presence even when awake, lurking in the shadows, watching them. Desperate for answers, the boys decided to dig into the history of room 13. They spoke to the hostel's oldest caretaker, an old man who reluctantly shared the dark secret. She was a woman betrayed. They say her soul never found peace. Room 13 became her prison, he whispered, his voice trembling. Realizing that the spirit was trapped, her agony keeping her bound to the hostel, Rahul suggested something unimaginable, setting her spirit free. One stormy night, the boys returned to room 13. This time they weren't there to provoke or mock. They carried a small lamp and incense sticks, hoping to provide some form of comfort. "We're sorry," Rahul said aloud, his voice steady but soft. "We understand your pain, and we are here to help you find peace." For a moment there was only silence. And then the room filled with a calm, cool breeze. The air felt lighter. The oppressive darkness seemed to lift, replaced by an overwhelming sense of tranquility. The boys left room 13 that night, feeling a strange sense of relief. The nightmare stopped. The sinister presence was gone. And though they never spoke of that night again, they all knew room 13's curse had been broken. But some say, if you listen closely on a quiet night, you can still hear a faint whisper of gratitude echoing through the corridors.